Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I want to summarize a famous financial book called The Richest Man in Babylon. This is a book about the first millionaires in Babylon that will show us how to become rich. Do you believe that the financial intelligence of the rich in the past can be used by future generations? Let's look at an interesting true story that goes back more than 80 years. In 1934, a professor of archaeology at the University of Nottingham received 5 samples from a group of students who were exploring antiquities from the city of Babylon. The professor read the ancient writings written on the samples. Do you know what they were written about? The surprising thing is that the samples did not talk about any historical or cultural heritage, but rather simple and romantic words that told the story of a slave in Babylon named Dabasir. He wrote about his own story, how he paid off a lot of debt and then became rich in a book for future businessmen. At that time, 2 professors, a married couple, were in deep debt and could not pay off their debts. Now, they came across a debt repayment method that was written more than 4,000 years ago. Why not try it? The couple analyzed and outlined their debt repayment method and started to follow it. Later, the 2 of them actually paid off all their debts. This book has made many people free from debt and become real millionaires in the modern world. Today, we will extract the main contents to explain to you all. This book was written by George Clausen, a famous businessman in the United States. In the field of writing, he has a great reputation and is also a father of finance. Since 1926, he has written many books that teach people how to manage their finances. The books are written in an easy-to-understand way, compiled like fairy tales that parents tell their children. Among them, the most popular book is the book entitled The Richest Man in Babylon. For more than 100 years, this book has remained a financial book that people around the world have read without fail. Banks, insurance companies, real estate companies, etc. have bought this book and distributed it to their employees. Have you bought it? In this book, Clausen describes the journey of 2 billionaires in Babylon to become rich. What special secrets did they have? In short, there were only 2 things: saving and investing. It doesn't sound difficult, but it is difficult to do. Now we will talk about it in detail.
Savings. First, let's talk about savings. Many people probably think that saving is useless. The more money you have, the more you can save. But if you don't have much income, the more you save, the less you can live. But in this book, it is said that no matter how much income you have, as long as you are willing to save 10% of your income, you are already on the path to wealth. According to the 2 characters in this book, this method is easy and effective. There was a man named Arcad, a young man like other young people in that era, who sold his labor in exchange for money. He worked as a scribe for someone. He worked many hours a day, but he didn't earn much money, and his daily expenses increased. He wrote his daily diary on a stone tablet. His life seemed to be no different from that of young people in this new era. Many people after graduation, if they don't work in an institution with a high salary, they will only earn 1 penny and will not be able to become rich. But in the mind of that young man, he set a goal for himself that one day he would become rich. But the dream was still a dream, and he had not found a way out until one day he met a millionaire named Algamish. Algamish said, "When I decided to withdraw some of my money to save, I was already on the path of a millionaire, and you can do the same." The young scribe Arcad was very surprised and said, "This is also called the way to become rich? Everyone knows it."
Remember, anyone can say the word saving, but not everyone can do it. Although Arcad was skeptical in his heart, he still wanted to try it, because Algamish had so much money, he must have his own method. Success cannot lie to people. It would not be wrong to follow him. But Arcad's small income, taking a part of it to save, will definitely affect daily expenses. He was determined that he had to save, even if he had a small income. As long as he did not starve to death, other things were not important. Algamish asked Arcad one more time, "If you save 10% of the money you earn every year, how much money will you have in 10 years?"
Arcad said that I will have money equal to the amount I earned in that year. Algamish was not satisfied with this answer. He shook his head and said, "You must answer half." In fact, in the eyes of this millionaire, the money he earned does not stand still in one place, but is constantly moving. The problem is how to make that money active, not stay in one place. In the original words of Algamish, every cent of the money in your pocket must be put to work for you. Money is like our slave. We must know how to use the money we save. The more we use it, the more it increases in value.
Arcad was still not completely convinced, but he did it anyway. He started to withdraw 10% of his income to save. After a few months, what he didn't expect was that this amount did not reduce the quality of his daily life. 10% of his income is not a lot. Saving or spending it does not make a difference in our daily lives. Of course, everyone has things they love. Every time they see something they want, they really want to take out their savings to buy it. But it is the small amount of money they save that is holding them back, making them regret not spending their hard-earned money. It stops them from spending it. Later, Arcad took the money he saved and invested it. At first, it was a little difficult, but once they took the first step, it was not as difficult as we thought. After teaching Arcad how money makes money, Algamish gave some of his wealth to Arcad to manage, and Arcad managed it well, making Algamish's wealth grow more and more. Arcad also received some of the wealth he was entitled to. Later, Algamish passed away, leaving some money to Arcad. In the end, the wise can predict that Arcad became the richest man in Babylon. And this book describes some financial principles that have many values and benefits to future generations, from a millionaire more than 4,000 years ago.
After listening to this story, we can understand that, in fact, being rich is possible with a simple start. Many people know about it, but there are not many people who can do it. Most of those who can do it are people who are managing the wealth of the Great Haul in today's society. Especially when it comes to saving, don't think that money is too little or not saving much. The problem is that most people can't control their desire to spend. They don't know what is necessary, what is property, what is debt. If we look at it in detail, we will see that there are many things that are not necessary, such as unnecessary gatherings, various luxurious decorations, etc. If we can save that money and invest it, we will have more money than we have now.
Readers and listeners must think that Arcad became the richest man in Babylon because he was chosen by Algamish to keep his wealth. But not everyone can be as lucky as Arcad. In fact, it's not like that. If you think about it, you can see that Arcad's ability is because he can do one important thing: save 10% of his income. This shows that he is very determined and knows how to manage his finances. In real life, the same is true. No luck falls from the sky. Arcad's success comes from his own efforts. He starts with what he has, does what he can first, and takes one step forward. What kind of person did Arcad become later? At 70 years old, he was the richest man in Babylon. He was a symbol of wealth. Even the king at that time invited him to be an honored guest.
The story is like this. Previously, Babylon was a city that relied on transportation, large ancient buildings, etc., which made the city very famous, and the people also received a lot of income from this sector. However, when those architectural structures were completed, the economy was not as prosperous as before. Income began to decline, the economy began to stagnate. The king at that time began to worry about the lives of his people. The only hope was in the youth, who were full of energy and intelligence. He selected 100 young activists. What did all these activists do? Those young people had to lead the Babylonian economy to become famous and prosperous as before. But this can only be done with a guide. So he invited Arcad to be the guide for these activists, teaching them how to become rich by starting a business from scratch. When Arcad taught the people the first lesson he gave to his students, you can probably guess what it was: save 10% of their income. Arcad told a young man who was selling eggs that you could try. Every morning, put 10 eggs in a basket, and at night, take 9 eggs and use them as usual. Do this every day, and soon the basket will be full of eggs. Then you need to have a plan for spending. Earn 10, spend 9, and keep 1.
How to spend that 9 requires you to have a clear plan for spending. This is the most important financial knowledge that the Babylonians left to their future generations. If you were born in Babylon, the first thing you learned was how to become rich.
Do you remember the slave named Dabasir that we mentioned earlier? Now, let's talk about his story. In fact, Dabasir was not a slave at first, but because he was careless and too generous with himself as a child, he got into a lot of debt and was later forced to leave Babylon and become a slave in Syria. But because of the understanding and support of his master, he was able to return to Babylon, and what he was determined to do was to pay off his debts. Dabasir's method of paying off his debts was no different from Arkad's method, which was to strictly follow the 10% savings principle. At the end of the month when he was paid, he would save part of his money, pay off his debts, and spend the rest on necessities. He would save 10% of his income, then the other 70% for daily expenses. Although it was a bit difficult, he had to limit his spending to no more than 70% of what he earned, and the remaining 20% was to pay off his debts. In addition to paying off debts, another thing that Dabasir did was to use all means to ensure that the 10% of the money he saved could be used to create children to serve his master.
Dabasir had a special ability. He was good at watching camels. He could see which camels were good, which camels could walk far. He bought some good breed camels and sold them for a profit of 42 taels. Finally, he paid off all his debts. He understood that paying off debts was much easier than getting out of debt. The debt repayment method left on these stone tablets has passed through thousands of years and has helped 2 couples in this modern era to use it and achieve successful results. This is ancient wisdom that can be used in all eras. Above, we have talked a lot about saving. Taking 10% of your income to save does not reduce the quality of life, but it makes us know what is necessary, what is not needed, and what is not needed. We should save and spend it, not spend the rest and save it. Every penny we save, we must find a way to use it so that money creates money, not just sit there.
2. Investment. Now we come to the second important point, which is to learn how to invest money to create money. There are many investment methods, but the principles are the same. What are the investment principles? This book also mentions the risks of investing. Many people say that investing must be risky, high risk, but also high returns. But when it comes to the rich in Babylon, they don't think like that. Their investment has one principle: to keep money stable and not lose it. So investing cannot be done according to memory.
Speaking of investments, let's look at Arkad's story again. Before he became rich, he saved up for more than a year. He did business with a man who was a bricklayer. This man often went to work on ships in distant countries. He met Arkad by chance and introduced him to a business. The man said that he could help him buy precious stones produced in Phoenicia from the port of Lebanon and sell them. The profit would be divided equally between the two. This method of making money was too easy, and Arkad thought that he could do nothing and still share the profit in half, with the man taking care of all the work, as if there was no risk. Why not try it? People don't think like angels do. The stones that the Phoenicians sold to the man were not valuable stones. The man didn't even know how to look at stones. That's when Algamish appeared in Arkad's life. After Algamish learned about this, Algamish's advice to Arkad was, know clearly what to listen to and what to decide for yourself. Which opportunities are yours and which are not. He blamed Arkad for trading stones and trusting the bricklayer. Learning to do business with people who have never done business before is not possible. I think you know this, but think about it. In today's society, have you ever encountered such a stupid thing? Listening to other people's words that they can make money by investing without knowing how it works? When it's time to lose, you start blaming yourself and others, only to realize that the person who advised you to invest is not much better than you.
But Arkad is still Arkad. The money you saved for the first time, even though you had difficulty, has been lost. But it's not a big deal. Start the conversation again. Use the same formula. Save 10% of your income.
You've saved before, but this time it's not as difficult as the last time. But you start to be more careful about investing. Before investing, you ask many experts. Arcad met a blacksmith. He heard that the blacksmith lacked capital to buy raw materials, so he took the money he had saved and invested with him, asking him to use this capital to buy raw materials to make shields to sell. It's like investing in stocks these days. The blacksmith made the best quality shields and sold them the best. Every 4 months, the blacksmith distributed a portion of the profits to Arcad. From then on, Arcad's smart investment began. When 100 students, special activists appointed by the king, listened to the story that Arcad had told, it made them understand one reason. In order for our money to make money, only if we find experts with business ideas and invest in them. We must know how to give money to experts, do expert work, and be successful. Arcad not only passed this knowledge on to the 100 activists, but the most important person he had to guide was his son, Nomasir.
Unlike many rich children of this era, Nomasir, despite being born rich, could not easily enjoy his father's wealth. Arcad's way of teaching his children to understand finances was to let them enter the business world on their own. Arcad left his children 2 things: gold and a brick. The gold was his travel expenses and his initial capital, and the brick had a few lines of writing on it: the 5 golden principles. These words may not sound very profound, but they summarized the wisdom and financial knowledge of the previous generation of millionaires. These principles spoke of saving until they became rich, telling about investment methods. Arcad emphasized that having money in hand, you must keep it. You must know how to invest wisely, trust experts, and do not trust scammers. Arcad gave these 2 things to Nomasir to use for 10 years to travel around the world. He set a rule for his son that he must work hard, not pretend to be a rich son. If he can prove himself capable of making money and managing money, then he can give those assets to Nomasir as his manager. 10 years later, Nomasir returned, as promised. His father organized a reunion party. Taking this opportunity, Nomasir recounted the bitter experience of more than 10 years that he had gone through. When he first arrived in a new city, it was like a piece of meat falling into the mouth of a tiger. Everyone was trying to take his money, gold, and silver, so Nomasir was cheated and lost his wealth. But it's not a big deal. Nomasir has the gene of a businessman like his father. He starts to rise again. Thinking about a stone that his father gave him, he discovers the true meaning of the stone. Nomasir gets a job, managing the slaves to build the city wall. This job gives him the opportunity to practice the 5 golden rules that his father wrote on the stone.
What does Nomasir do here? He takes a penny from his income to save. Sounds like you've heard before, right? It's his father's rule to take 10% of the money he earns to save. When he has some money, he becomes friends with the boss who owns the slaves. Then, the opportunity to make big money comes. The slave owner finds that there is a shortage of metal in this area. When the city wall is built, he will definitely need a lot of metal to make the city gates. At that time, whoever has the most metal in his hand will be able to become rich. Thinking immediately, doing immediately. Not waiting long, they gathered a few people to go far away to find metal ore. As a result, they were successful, digging up dozens of tons of metal ore and transporting it to the city. The king saw this and bought all those materials at a huge price because they were very rare and had no suppliers. Nomasir earned his first capital as a basis for further business. What does this story teach us? This story tells us that when entering a field for the first time, walking with experts, veterans who have been in business and have a lot of experience, only having a guide can make it possible.
Speaking of this, it happened to a friend of Algamish who was also a wealthy businessman in Babylon. He told a story as follows. In the past, there was a man who could understand the language of animals. One day, the man heard an ox complaining to a donkey, saying, "I am so tired every day, having to carry goods and plow the fields, and I have no time to rest. As for you, donkeys live very comfortably.
If the owner does not want to go anywhere, he sleeps and eats grass and does nothing. My life is very miserable and unfair." The donkey gave the ox a suggestion. "I have an idea. Tomorrow, you try to pretend to be sick and not work. When people come tomorrow and see us sick, they will not use us anymore." Good idea, but bad idea. What will happen? People who see such sick oxen put their goods on the donkey's back instead and let the donkey work instead of the oxen. This is called "the wound does not hurt, take a stick to help them." Just saying a few words will bring suffering to them. After that, the ox and the donkey stopped talking, and their friendship gradually faded. This story taught us another lesson. Helping others is a good thing, but you don't have to take on other people's burdens yourself. Moneylenders more than 4,000 years ago were no different from moneylenders today. Before lending money to someone, they had to look at the borrower's assets and ability to repay in order to avoid risk.
In conclusion, this second point has taught us: invest in projects that are suitable. Learn to look at risks. Don't think too much about profits. Stay away from projects that we don't understand. Don't trust them. What if you think too much and don't make a decision? Can you fail? In this book, opposing views are raised at the same time. Sometimes you have to think carefully. Don't make a decision too quickly. And sometimes you have to make a decision as quickly as possible. Don't delay. It's like the palm of your hand and the back of your hand. There are no good decisions. Let's listen to this example. When Arcad was a young newlywed, his father hoped that he could prepare a plot of land outside the city walls. Because the land was on high ground and there was no water, he planned to install a water system in the land and divide it into small plots so that farmers could farm for a living. But everything did not go as planned. He became obsessed with materialism. Seeing beautiful fabrics, he took out money to buy them and keep them to make clothes to satisfy himself for a short time. This decision made him lose a big opportunity to make money. In society, there are also many real cases like this. Wanting to do business but having no capital, but instead having money to buy materials to show off.
Let's look at another example. A businessman spent more than 10 days looking for camels to sell. Many days passed, but he still couldn't find any camels. He was desperate to return to the city because the city gates had not been closed yet. He decided to camp outside the city and wait until morning to enter the city. Coincidentally, a herdsman with 900 camels arrived at the city gate. The herdsman said, "I have 900 camels behind me. I will sell them to you, but I have to get the money tonight because I have to go back to see my sick wife at home." The businessman had special skills and a lot of experience because he had been buying camels for decades. But now it was dark. The herdsman said that there were 900 camels. Is it true or not? He didn't believe him, so he said that it was night and he couldn't count the number of camels. He would wait until tomorrow morning to count the money. In the morning, the city gates were open again. Unexpectedly, the city had run out of food for a long time. The people in the city were willing to pay 3 times more than the businessman to buy camels from the herdsman. You see, the boiled duck, let it fly away. The time is different only one night. Golden opportunity, silver opportunity. Because of hesitant decisions, we can't seize the opportunity. Opportunities are always there, but sometimes we can't see them. Sometimes we can't take them because we are afraid of the risk. What kind of person can receive luck from the angels? In this book, it is written that those who make quick decisions and act quickly. In investing, action and knowing how to anticipate risks are all equally important.
Let's come to the last point. Let's briefly review the main contents of the book. When it comes to wealth, you can't get away from 2 things: saving and investing. Withdrawing 10% of your income to save will not affect your daily living expenses, but if you know how to start saving, you will definitely have passed the first stage of the path to wealth. Not only that, you need to know how to make the money you save active. Use money to create money through investment. How to invest? Find a project that is reliable. Don't believe or take risks with projects that promise excessively high profits. There may be problems and risks that we can't see. Taking action is really important. When you encounter an opportunity, seize it immediately. Don't delay, because every second can be lost. The above are some of the important contents that we extracted from the book The Richest Man in Babylon.
If you want to read the entire book, it is available for purchase at bookstores. Thank you all for listening. Congratulations! You finished listening to another good book.